What's going, guys? Aarava here. Welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast. This is episode number 11 today, and we're back with your usual hosts, myself, Aarav, Callum, and Tom. Welcome, guys. And we have some rather interesting news. Obviously, the biggest one, unless you've been living under a rock, is the Kvyat and Verstappen swap. The swap between Red Bull and Toro Rosso. Pretty huge news. And obviously, later on in the podcast, we're also going to be previewing the Spanish Grand Prix, talking about a few things over the weekend. But obviously, this has been a huge discussion. Lots of you guys tweeting, all three of us, in fact, asking for our opinion. So, you guys looking forward to the podcast for this. So, let's get straight in there, guys. Any thoughts straight away? Like, first kind of big thoughts from it?
I think I'll start off with a tweet I made when I saw the news. I was actually very surprised. I thought, this is a joke. I think it's very low from Red Bull. I don't know why they had to make it, because the way that they're saying, the way that they're trying to say, oh yeah, we swapped because we were protecting Kvyat and we wanted to give Verstappen a chance. I thought that was very low. How ironic it came literally just after Kvyat's crash with Vettel, and the fact that Vettel had a talk with Christian Horner and different things. But honestly, from the outside, I think it's just very low from Red Bull.
It smells of BS. I don't know about you, but
yeah,
it just stinks. It was absolutely ridiculous, really, from Red Bull. If I'm quite honest, I think Red Bull really did not do themselves any favours whatsoever. It's very unfortunate for Kvyat, especially considering he's the only one who's got Red Bull a podium this season, which is quite ironic. So it's just poor form from Red Bull, really. And to be fair, I did tweet out at the time. There was an article I read in pre-season about Helmut Marko saying there'll be a lot more pressure on drivers to deliver this season and to not mess up, essentially. And it seems like Kvyat has already just suffered that fate straight away after like 4 races. So it's really tough on Kvyat.
I think you mentioned that in like a previous podcast, like pre-season, about that. Yeah, and we're like, that's going to be actually, that might come into play a little bit in terms of what might happen. And here you go. It's been, 4 races in, and we've already seen that come to fruition.
It's just so harsh.
Honestly, when I saw it, it was like, oh, that's a sting. That's more than a slap in the face. That's like...
Well, basically, we know now that pretty much Kvyat's not going to get back into Red Bull, I don't think.
Yeah, no.
Because
I was going to...
It just can't happen.
I was
not
thinking
with
like...
an 18-year-old and however old Daniel Ricciardo is. He's not going to have a chance.
I was thinking basically...
Kvyat's only 21.
This is basically the beginning of his end, basically. Like, what... Okay, so let's say scenario, Verstappen does well, which I think he probably will, and he stays in Red Bull. Like, I say as in, like, he'll do okay. I honestly think Ricciardo will still, like, outshine him and, like, put him in his place.
I think he'll easily outshine him.
But, let's say Verstappen stays in Red Bull. Kvyat's not going to want to stay in Toro Rosso. So, he either jumps ship, which is not a great idea as well, because, obviously, no top team is going to take him, because pretty much all the top teams are sort of locked in place. And then the lower teams, obviously, Kvyat's not really going to want to drive for them. And also, does Kvyat really have enough backing for that? So, honestly, I think it's the beginning of the end for him, which is really, really unfortunate. Because I really feel one mistake like that, every driver should be allowed some mistakes in their career. Like, these drivers are still developing. Verstappen had a huge mistake last year at Monaco. You didn't see him, like, get demoted, like, punted out of Toro Rosso for it.
Yeah, it's very... It's so harsh. And don't get me wrong, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of all three of us, we were delighted for Max Verstappen. He's an incredible talent. He's shown it over the past season and a bit. He has shown, this season's not been so good. He's shown that he's very immature, but that's what you get for an 18-year-old. But at the end of the day, he's got a chance. Obviously, he's going to go and run with it now, in the same way that Kvyat probably, maybe he didn't take his opportunity, but I think he made the most of it almost, because apart from a few bad qualifyings and maybe the odd bad race, to say that he's had the only podium for Red Bull this season does say quite a lot. And, talking about the crash, like a reflection after a week, Turn 2 was definitely his fault. And we also saw Gutierrez completely mirror that. No one saw this, but then F1, the actual official F1, they put it on the website. The exact same crash happened, and he completely wiped out Hulkenberg from the race. And then the Turn 3 incident, Kvyat, I think he did argue the fact that the closing speed was so quick. But then you've got to, if positive, negative, you kind of got to weigh up. If he was going way too fast into the corner, but then again Vettel backed off, and it was very close. It was quite weird how he backed off, but then again, we didn't know whether he had a puncture or not. But I think, I'm not sure, because the way that Red Bull is saying it's like, oh yeah, we're protecting Kvyat, but why would Kvyat want to be protected by going to a lower team? Because at the start of the season, us three thought that Toro Rosso would be a lot closer to Red Bull, but they're not. Red Bull are probably the solid third team on the grid.
Yeah, surprisingly.
So that's a huge step back in Kvyat's career. And now what? Like what you said, Arav, where does he go? If he wants to get, and that's the thing, if he wants to get out of the Red Bull family, I swear he's under one of these huge 10-year contracts where he's been locked in and he's not allowed to go anywhere else.
Well,
so unless he can get out of it,
unless
where does
Red
he go
Bull,
then?
I'm guessing Red Bull are the one that can have the power to release him from the contract, but I don't think they're going to do that, honestly. So
because he's still a talent that they want to keep hold on to, but they've just gone and demoted it.
Yeah, so it'll basically be Toro Rosso or bust, basically, in a sense, which is, yeah, I mean, obviously we also mentioned it before the podcast. I think a big factor in this whole thing is the fact that there's also, I think, the pressure from Vettel, whatever he said to Horner at the Russian Grand Prix. I think after the race we saw that Vettel went to Horner, told him that I'm not going to have a word with Kvyat, but you need to. And I think that pressure, and also the pressure of the general outcry of the fans and the Ferrari fans after the race, I think that also made it quite a pressure cooker for this situation. And I think the Verstappen swap was almost like, oh, how convenient that Kvyat crashed right now. And
so he was almost waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah, because we all know that Verstappen was headhunted a little bit by Ferrari and other teams, and that basically this is sort of, from Verstappen's standpoint and his dad's standpoint, from the whole Verstappen camp, this is a great way to leverage him into the Red Bull team to be like, okay, you got this guy who's just crashed in the top team. Let's do this swap. You don't want to lose Max, so let's do this swap, please. We can get a better contract maybe later on, and everyone's happy apart from Kvyat. So
I think overall it's a bit of a funny one, really. I don't think it's that bad of a thing for Kvyat, to be honest. It sort of takes the pressure off him a little bit, which I do think he had a bit of pressure on him to start with.
Yeah.
And then also, let's not be around the bush here. Even though Toro Rosso are inferior to Red Bull, they're not that bad. It's not like, if this happened 10 years ago, or like, maybe not 10 years ago, but
even
5-6 years ago, then it was career over, because Toro Rosso were nowhere near on the pace as Red Bull. Whereas now, Toro Rosso still aren't that bad. They're solid top 10 runners, Toro Rosso. So this is also a good chance for Kvyat to actually prove himself to other teams around there. So now he's in a lower car, sort of with this nothing to lose attitude that he might have now. He can sort of just go out there and say, okay, so I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to try the best races I can, and let's see what the future holds for me. And also, I think for Sainz as well, actually. Obviously, everyone was saying he's very unlucky, which I'm also one of those people who says Sainz is very unlucky. Verstappen seemed to get all the luck, and Verstappen always seemed to outshine Sainz because of it. So I think this is a good chance for Sainz, if his car's reliable, to see where he matches up with Kvyat. So It's a good little comparison, because obviously
kicking the balls.
Yeah, of course it's kicking the balls for Sainz, yeah, because it's not what he wanted, but
then again, we saw that with Verne.
I feel like Toro Rosso, almost in a way, are like, they've got different engines to Red Bull, different drivers, two drivers who have been like completely shielded off from the Red Bull program. It's almost like there's a bit of disruption between the whole program. It's not really running smoothly, but it's like Red Bull and Toro Rosso have always had the same engines throughout the entire existence.
In that sense, but I think in that way,
seem to be going separating a little bit. Going in different ways.
I think in that sense, it's sort of also like, obviously the regulations don't allow you to actually share technical insights like that across from team to team. So Toro Rosso is very much a separate team in terms of the car. The car is a separate team. Like there's no technical secrets going from Red Bull to Toro Rosso. Otherwise, the FIA would clamp down on that. But in terms of like the family thing, the Red Bull program, obviously we actually mentioned this in like one of the very early podcasts about how like the Red Bull program almost stabs itself in the back sometimes with how much talent it brings through, and you only have 4 seats, which is crazy to say. Like, oh, there's only 4 seats in F1, but it's true. There's so much talent in this pool, and there's only 4 seats up for grabs. It's actually quite annoying for a lot of drivers.
It all comes down to one fundamental thing. They're trying to copy the best person in the Red Bull driver program.
Well, yeah.
And that's Sebastian Vettel. They obviously had a gem on their hands. They did a very early promotion to Red Bull, and we saw, and obviously he got promoted to Red Bull and performed straight away. Obviously getting a win in his first season at Red Bull, then going on to win 4 consecutive titles. But obviously from that point onwards, now Vettel has parted ways. They're like, okay, we've done it once, let's try it again. And obviously I think at first, once like Webber parted ways, it was like, okay, let's get Ricciardo in. Maybe it's not going to go so smooth. Then let's try Kvyat, because Kvyat to Red Bull was a very, very early move. As soon as Vettel said he was off, that move was instant. It was like, right, Kvyat straight away into that seat. And it feels like they almost kind of don't think twice about it. They kind of go, right,
Don't forget,
they are.
at the
into
time,
that seat you go.
Kvyat was 19, 20 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So he was also very young, and it hasn't really worked out. Also, you do the Vettel comparison. Vettel wasn't 18 when he went to Red Bull.
It was a lot more.
He was like 21 or 22.
There's a big difference here. I don't agree with the Verstappen going to Red Bull, because I just think it's not right. He's just way too young. Like, if they really want Verstappen at Red Bull, they could have, at this point in the season, announced him as a driver for next season, but at least give him the whole season in Toro Rosso to just develop a bit more.
Because a few people don't really believe in age.
In terms of...
it doesn't really... Like, there's experience, but then there's also... It's like, you can't say that an 18-year-old isn't set for a big team, because he can always prove you wrong. But I don't think we can sit here and say he's too young, because obviously he was bloody 17 last season, and he completely just like wiped the field in the midfield. Like,
I don't want to get it twisted. This isn't hate towards Max at all or anything. It's mainly just... It's just so harsh on Kvyat.
Yeah, no, I agree with Tom
and I feel really bad for him.
Kvyat's, like, the Verstappen, like, I'm sure he'll do, like, a solid job at Red Bull. Like, you know...
He'll match Ricciardo. He will be up there with Ricciardo. He won't be second best all the time.
I honestly think that Verstappen might get a bit of reality check, to be honest. I think
Ricciardo...
I think the fact that maybe people were drawing comparisons of Ricciardo going to Red Bull, like sort of, maybe Ricciardo can be the next shining light as like a Vettel. There's a part of the fact that, you know, that's only half the story. The car needs to be as good as Red Bull made it in 2017.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But when I'm sitting here and saying he might actually been all right, obviously I'm not being stupid here and saying, Ricciardo's going to be completely outclassed. He's been in the team for bloody 2-3 years now. He's already got the experience. He's already had 4 races of experience. He did all the testing, so obviously he knows that car almost back to front already. Verstappen's just jumping in and driving it. I'm not saying that Monaco will be ahead of him.
Oh no, I don't think like...
I'm saying maybe Japan.
Yeah, you'll say he'll be level. Like he won't be.
I'm talking about the entire season, which is also coming back to the point. Why didn't... I know there's an awful lot of the season remaining, but why not wait until the end of the season at least before and let things pan out a little bit better? But Monaco, Azerbaijan, probably all the way up to Britain, maybe Germany, Hungary. Probably Ricciardo will be ahead, but maybe Verstappen might be starting to get on top of his feet. Maybe he will get a reality check, which he probably will do, walking straight into the team, and then probably Ricciardo being 5-7 tenths faster than him. But I think he will slowly start to pick up. He's got brand new engineers around him. It's a brand new factory. It's a brand new car. It's just the same Red Bull culture and family behind him. But we'll see, because at the end of the day, we're happy for Verstappen, but absolutely devastated for Kvyat, for Sainz, and I think Ricciardo's just kind of sitting there like, it's all changing around me, and I'm just sitting here with my seat all secure.
I will be very intrigued. Like, I've predicted this at the start of the season. I think Ricciardo will go to Ferrari. That's my pick if Raikkonen does leave, when he does leave. The question is, if Ricciardo does go, could it be Sainz, or could Kvyat get a second chance, if that is still the lineup at the time? So there is still a possibility there. I can't see Ricciardo staying at Red Bull myself, personally. But I think he'll move on.
I also can't see him go to Ferrari, though, to be honest. Like, because even though it was just really more of Sebastian not getting used to the 2014 regulations and not getting used to the new way the braking system felt. He said he never felt the feeling in the car. I honestly still think that because of that season, there's just too much bad vibes between the two of them in terms of being teammates. Like, I almost feel like Vettel could veto the move if it were on the cards, almost.
I don't know.
Unless, obviously, flip side.
I think Vettel was more frustrated with the team than Ricciardo.
Flip side, Vettel could be like, come on then, I'll show you up, come to Ferrari, and I'll prove everyone wrong for what happened in 2014.
Yeah.
So that could be the flip side, and honestly, I don't think it was, obviously people say Ricciardo completely outclassed him, but I do think that a big factor was the whole couldn't get
Oh,
used to the
yeah.
car. But there's no doubt
season.
Ricciardo did do a fantastic job, and there's definitely some little tension. So it will be interesting to see how much power Vettel almost has. It'll be interesting to see how much power he has at Ferrari to be like,
Well, he looks
I
like
don't want him on the on.
he's
on
had a
my
lot
team.
of power over bloody Red Bull. If I'm not going to draw conclusions and say that Vettel talking to Christian Horner obviously kicks Kvyat out of the team, but obviously Vettel being quite a big talking point, he's a 4-time world champion. He probably does have a lot of speaking in whatever team he is in. But
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, with the pressure cooker, like.
Yes.
It's him being a 4-time world champion at Ferrari, the guy who just got crashed out, going up to talking to Christian Horner. Then you have all this stuff about Verstappen before. It all really boiled to a boiling point and was like, oh, okay.
Kind of a chain reaction. Yeah.
You just have. It's like you said, like Red Bull went straight in there with the whole Kvyat thing when he first came in. Into Red Bull, it's the same thing. Like they literally went into. It doesn't really look like they've like even had more than a week. Well, obviously it's not more than a week. Like, to think about it, they just went bang straight.
Yeah,
all right, we're just going to do this swap. Spanish Grand Prix for the rest of the season. Done.
Yeah, well,
I don't
obviously,
know.
fair play, because the actual news got leaked the day before, I think. So whoever managed to...
Yeah, it was like
info
rumoured.
did really well. So, fair
Yeah, it
play
was a
to him.
rumour, and I think
But-
a lot of us laughed it off. It was like, nah, that won't happen.
Yeah,
like, we
at
haven't
the time,
seen
everyone was
a
like-
driver change like that.
We were
in
just like, that's
years.
madness. How do you
It's
do
just
like a swap
another
like that?
Red Bull sort of half-empty threat sort of thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't
But
a
it
threat.
actually happened, which was quite surprising. But on the topic of just a pressure cooker, so to speak, I don't know if I want to move on with the next topic or just sort of subjects a bit, but
Yeah, we can do.
there has been a lot of bit of riffraff, a bit of debate this week because Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton have both done open letters to Lewis Hamilton fans in regards to some actual Lewis Hamilton fans genuinely believing there's a conspiracy against him and that they're sabotaging his car, which is actually ridiculous how it's got to this point, and Mercedes as a team and Lewis Hamilton as a driver have had to acknowledge this and respond to this criticism, which is just...
It's bad.
You know it's bad.
It's very
when
bad.
you know it's bad when the team have to do an official letter.
Like, for
Yeah.
God's sake,
Yeah.
why on earth would they pay millions to Lewis Hamilton to break his car?
50 million.
Why would they
something
fork
like that.
out hundreds of millions to build a Mercedes Formula 1 car to then break it? Sort yourself out if you think that they would waste money of that proportion and that capacity. Just, oh my God, like, some people are so deluded.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually ridiculous, and it really, like, the more the week goes on, it's like, Mercedes actually had to go, we don't break Hamilton's car. And because I think people just bring straight to conclusions and go, oh, they've got different mechanics, there must be, like, tampering with his car. It's not Team A and Team B, it's Mercedes.
It's team. Just
It's
team.
a team. Like, oh, I don't know. It really annoyed me.
It's such a weird situation. Like it's almost, I like it like it's like if you had a football team, and like we're going back to the other podcast where we talk about football references that maybe not many people will get, but it's like if you had a football team and let's say you had one player you really liked, and he's not performing as well in the team. It's like almost if a football fan then went, oh, it's the team's fault that he's not performing. It's like, just no. If they work as a unit, and as a unit, then the player will perform. It's like that. It's like, honestly, do you really think they'll we'll have an engine failure or like a problem with the water pressure in the middle of the race just so he doesn't catch Rosberg? Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't make any logical sense.
Well, apparently Hamilton finished with no water pressure.
Yeah, he finished on the mark.
Like,
On the
and
mark. It was a miracle, actually.
well,
he finished.
yeah, me and I have, like, Tom, obviously a bit of a catch-up from the Lad podcast, but me and I have talked about the fact that, like, oh yeah, they're very worried with both cars, but then people instantly draw conclusions that as soon as Hamilton gets a water pressure issue, Nico Rosberg goes in and sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. There's no correlation, and there still is no correlation a week on. There's nothing. There's no link.
I think
There's just nothing.
people forget, for a start, I don't think Lewis can be told that Nico set the fastest lap of the race unless Hamilton happens to see it on one of the big monitors around the track because of radio bands. And number two, Rosberg, because of team radio bands, doesn't know that Lewis Hamilton has got a water pressure issue. So, put two and two together, brain, and you might get a solution. So, it's unbelievable. I understand every single fan base of every driver has good fans and bad fans. But I genuinely believe this is sort of just taking the piss now when it comes to Lewis Hamilton fans.
Like every you put it quite correctly. Every fan base has like obviously your majority like just fans, you're fans of your driver, fans of your team, fans of like any sport. But then you have those like few that just take it over the top. But I honestly believe like Tom just said, there's over the top, and then there's like just
delusion.
taking the
Just
mick.
delusion.
Just taking the mick. Even
It's
after
ironic,
Hamilton
though.
said his little letter, did you look? I don't know if you looked through.
Yeah,
there were still people
they
saying,
still tried to persuade him.
like, I'm sorry, Lewis, but I can't believe this. But it just can't be true. It's just like, what do you? No.
And the worst
Use
thing
your
is,
brain.
these fans are like, they never watched F1 before. They've sort of just hopped on the Hamilton
They don't
bandwagon
have a
as well.
clue about
It's
F1.
it's like what tells me is when they've got like LH44 in their Twitter username, and they've got like Mercedes slapped everywhere. Mercedes have been in the sport for 5 years. You can't beat a Mercedes fan all of a sudden because Lewis moved.
Because these Mercedes fans were McLaren fans once before in 2012.
Yeah, they just
2012
move.
backwards.
It's like they're just bandwagon, and it's just
It is
no.
very much like that. But we're not saying that all Hamilton fans, like, I'm a Hamilton fan. Obviously, you two aren't, but I'm a Hamilton fan. I have to actually take the piss out of my own
Well, yeah, no, that's
fan base
the thing.
because
Like,
there's such a difference
That's the thing.
in the Hamilton fan base. I'm delighted when Hamilton wins the World Championship.
exactly.
I'm delighted when he wins races. But then I don't go dead delusional when Hamilton does bad, because I think that the Chinese Grand Prix is probably one of the best Grand Prix in the past 5 years, because it was over 100 overtakes. But Hamilton didn't do so well doesn't mean that's instantly a bad race now.
yeah,
Well,
like
there was
I think that's a good.
someone-
Like me and Tom have been blessed with knowing and being friends with someone who's a Hamilton fan, but is not crazy. Let's put it that way. Like, it is just ridiculous. Like,
No, put it this way: if Callum was crazy like some of these fans, I wouldn't be a friend with him. So
it's just
I
a
just
bit
get along
crazy.
quite
Like,
nicely.
it is mad. Yeah, and I do.
And if-
I do agree with that point. Like, you probably these delusional people are sort of like, they've just got into the sport like
They're
in
so
20.
narrow-minded,
Like,
it's
they
unbelievable.
either got into the sport in 08, or they got in recently, and it's like
Well, I don't think I only joined because I joined like 08. So
no, you can join an 08.
no,
and,
but
you
as in like you just joined in 08, but you said you watched it like a little bit before, and then you
Yeah,
sort
I
of
saw
properly got in.
races.
Like, I got in at 06, like casually, but I only fully started watching like every single race without fail in 2010. But I was watching on and off till then. But like over the course of 3 years, I sort of sussed every driver out, and then decided, I'm going to support Jensen. And it's the same
but
with you.
basically-
Like, you came in, and obviously it is logical. Like, you start watching it properly in 08, and it's like, he's like the British guy who's doing really, really well. Obviously you would, because that happens in Olympics and everything. You support your nation and things like that, and that's fine. But it's like what Tom said, when you get people who don't actually watch the sport fully, they just follow along with the news on Hamilton. They don't care about what anyone else does, just Hamilton.
basically, if you're a Hamilton fan sitting there that think that Mercedes tamper with your car, go find a new sport.
Yeah.
Because
It's
we don't have cheating in this sport, and we don't have sabotage in this sport.
It's
End
the
of story.
extreme deluded fans who bring shame to the sport at times and make it look like an absolute pile of trash. And this I can tie this in with something else. I'm a Valentino Rossi fan of MotoGP, and honestly, when the controversy happened in the last season and the extremists came out, it's just embarrassing.
Wait,
Imagine.
I saw
I've seen
about his
plenty. I've seen
MotoGP
plenty
stuff.
of stuff on Twitter. Like, like, I don't
God.
follow MotoGP. I'm sort of happy, like, almost in a way, because that's just a secondary
It's almost
toxic kind of place.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect word for it. It's toxic.
Yeah.
Like, you walk in, it's like, God, it's that poisonous gas of, like, people. Just get a life. It's like, there's more to life than Valentino Rossi or Lewis Hamilton or... Just come on. Just wake up.
It's
please.
like there's even that there's a difference. It's like Rossi's a 10-time world champion. Lewis has only won 3 championships. Let's not lie, pretend he's God. Vettel's won 4 championships. There's better drivers. So
Oh, you don't want to get on that topic of who's the best driver, because then we'll be here all day and that.
No, that's not.
We
That's far from
move
the
on?
point. That's far from the point. The point is
more-
just fans.
Yeah, just fans.
Like-
wake up and everything.
Like I'm a fan of Jensen, and I'm a proud fan of Jensen, but obviously I will admit he's not the best, and he's not at his prime right now, and I can admit that. But I almost feel like Hamilton fans will never admit, like, when he does bad, or like when it's literally just the luck of the draw.
Yeah, they'll say that in 2011 he was still the best driver on the grid.
Yeah, or
But he wasn't.
or just like, he got unlucky. No, he didn't get unlucky. It
No,
was
he
Mercedes
crashed into
clearly
people.
sabotaging. It's like, no, you just
Yeah.
get those unlucky races sometimes. And obviously, Hamilton, we said this in the last podcast. So he's on a bad streak. I honestly believe at some point the luck will come to him, and Rosberg will get a little bit unlucky, to be honest. Because I think I don't believe in karma, but I sort of just believe eventually it sort of balances itself out eventually at some point. Like, if it doesn't, that's a real shame. That's a real shame. But also at the same time, we mentioned this on the podcast, this is sort of getting a little bit off topic from the fan discussion, but Rosberg still has to do the job. So,
Yes, exactly.
there you go. But anyway,
there's 21 races this season.
I just want to say, like, obviously, don't forget this was sort of the pattern of 2014. Rosberg got the upper hand at the start, and then Rosberg broke down in Silverstone, and then that's where it all changed. That was the catalyst for Lewis Hamilton to then go on and win the British Grand Prix in 2014, and then just completely walk the rest of the season. So
yeah.
I think people need to have a bit of just a bit more of a broad perspective with things. Like, let's not forget there's 17 races left. 17.
Well, it also links back to our Red Bull topic. Bloody look at Mark Webber. Did they sabotage his car? His car's failing all the
Exactly.
time.
It's just
get him out so
poor
they
luck.
can get some young talent in. Come on,
It's just poor luck. It's
wake
just poor
up,
luck.
wake up.
And,
Exactly.
like, obviously, we talk quite heated about all that stuff. And, when we say Hamilton fans, we're not talking to the entire fan base here. If you are watching and you're a Hamilton fan, we're talking to literally the one or
Toxic
two
ones.
deluded ones. The
Who
ones
rub
that
one out
tweet.
overnight.
Yeah, the ones
over
that tweet, oh, that was clearly a freaking conspiracy theory with a tinfoil hat on. We're talking to those people. The rest of you, you're all fine. Just,
You can stay. You can stay.
just
We like you.
maybe try and shun the people, your fellow fans who are just delusional.
Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm
Cal.
not doing it.
Cal, you can stay.
Yeah, I'll stay for
You're
now.
alright.
But should we move on
Yeah,
to
let's move
Spanish
on.
Grand
So,
Prix?
the Spanish Grand Prix, it's going to be obviously interesting for many different reasons already, because I'll be interested to see how Fiat and Verstappen do, respectively. But let's talk about some other teams and just generally the weekend. Obviously, in terms of the tyre compounds, it's going to be hard, medium, and soft.
Yes,
And
so it's
a
the first time
lot
we're
of
seeing the hards.
teams have brought a lot of softs.
Yes.
I said C. I think I meant to say C. That's what I was going to say, but for some reason I just said C. For some reason.
Yes.
Spanish
Nice
We
one,
get
there,
never
Tom.
English on the
C.
podcast, really. So lots of teams bring lots of softs, which is I'm really liking that, because it'll be a nice aggressive Grand Prix, not this kind of we'll just do 2 stops on hards. So I'm really liking that. Obviously the medium tyre, not many teams. There's actually basically if you look at the chart, there's like a big skew of soft tyres, then a little bit of medium, and then basically 1 tyre or 2 tyre for hards.
It's basically the equivalent of Sochi, but with the harder tyres.
But it's just one step
everyone's
back
gone for the
in
aggressive ones.
Yes,
hardness.
yeah. So
Well,
I think that's
I
going to
think
be.
we're going to see that all season, though. I think obviously we're always going to see
That's-
tons of the softest, a few of the medium, and then or whatever the medium tyre is. Not saying that the medium tyre is such, but then we'll see 1 or 2 sets of the hardest compound.
Yeah, I think it does sort of basically infer that the race is going to be at least a 3-stop, I would say, maybe even a 4 if teams are going really aggressive.
Yeah.
Obviously, back in like 2013, we had that a 4-stop, which was quite mad, but that was because the tyres really were degrading so fast. This year, obviously, the tyres are a little bit better than 2013, but it's just a case of generally this season so far. I think the pattern's been basically every team loves the softest tyres, obviously, because they're the faster one.
Yeah.
But then you have, obviously, teams like Manor maybe trying to gain a bit more time, doing 1 less pit stop. And,
I think Sauber have also bought a few more mediums, and they've only got 5 sets of softs, whereas other teams have got 8. So I think Haas have got quite a few, but we'll see, because I'm quite interested about Haas, because obviously they really do like to use, fully exploit the softest compound. And they love the super soft tyre, but this is the first time... This is the first Grand Prix that we haven't got the super soft tyre, so we'll see how Haas perform. That'll be very interesting to see if they're very good, because they're still quite a raw team, so they're still trying out different compounds, they're still learning race strategy. So that'll be very interesting to see.
We can sort of talk over a couple of teams, just to sort of pinpoint what's been going on since the last race. Obviously, I'll sort of kick this off. Apparently Sauber were late for the 3rd month in a row for their payments of staff, which is starting to signal problems, and also I think they mentioned that the 2017 rules will be a big stretch for them financially. So Sauber are really struggling now.
That's quite ironic, though, to say that the 2017 rules are supposed to be cheaper.
Yeah, but I'm just guessing
Yeah,
it's just got no money left. It's just a case of You know, I mean, even at Sochi, you could say Manor were like on par with them, if not slightly better.
Basically,
So
they've got no chairs, and now in the centre console, they won't have a centre console. It'll be one man on a laptop, and that'll be it.
They're just
honestly,
costs.
it's sad to say, but probably I could really see them just pulling out at the end of the season.
But then talking about another backfield team, Renault are a very weird one because they're sometimes at the back,
and then they got points
sometimes in the middle, and then they get points. But if you're a Renault fan, which there might be a few out there, there is apparently they're testing a B-spec engine, which is very promising to see. To say that they were going to they were properly hyping up Canada. Looks like Renault have brought it a little bit earlier, and they're doing the B-spec engine at Barcelona, so we might see a further improvement from Renault. But it's only Renault that've got it. Yeah. I don't think Red Bull have got any sort of upgrade at the moment with their Tag Heuer. But it's really weird because I'm not sure, because I know that all teams have to have, apart from Toro Rosso, I know that all teams have to have the most high-spec engine, I think. Like they have to be very far up there.
No,
I'm not sure what the correlation is between Renault and Tag Heuer.
I think it's a case of like if you officially bring out your new spec of engine, every team has to have it. But I think the reports have said, like Tom mentioned, it's a test of the B spec. Yeah. So
apparently Renault was saying like this is the first official thing Renault have done. Like this is their first proper developed part
using
since
the
they've
tokens.
come back to the sport. Like their car's been sort of like a scrap and like a rush of like what was left from Lotus last year and putting it all
basically
together.
Basically a 2015 Lotus with a slight change.
Yeah, like a
slight
B-spec
change of
2015
paint
Lotus.
scheme.
But this is like the first part of hopefully a big puzzle of Renault trying to get back up the sharp end. And
that's quite promising though, isn't it?
Yeah.
To say that they've got points with a slight mishmash of Lotus and Renault with a different paint scheme, and they're only just starting to make upgrades.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
It's very promising.
Seventh place.
Obviously, they've got with Kevin Magnussen, a very, very solid result.
So moving on to
also upgrades.
Another team, of upgrades. McLaren bringing a whole raft of updates. We got front wing, bodywork. Obviously, Tom also mentioned before the podcast, obviously Honda are going to keep on pushing every single race to try and just find a little bit more efficiency on everything. So it'll be interesting to see if, honestly, I hope they bring. Hopefully, all the upgrades actually work and install properly, and it works out for them in practice, so they can actually use them in the race. Because in the past, last season we saw a few times that in Austria they split the front wings with the nose cone and stuff like that. So hopefully it can be on both cars, or at least one of them, and actually work out for them. So it'll be interesting to see how much pace they gain.
I'm quietly optimistic about McLaren because obviously, I watched the Thursday drivers' press conference at Sochi in the last race, and JB was in there, and he was saying Russia really wasn't a track for them. They were sort of hoping to get this one out of the way and then get into the European season fully and really start to improve. But they got double points finish.
Yeah, they got double points
So
finish.
I'm quite
That's
optimistic
a
about
bad
McLaren,
track.
Exactly.
For McLaren, what's good? What's a good track
long
for
back
them, then?
straight, long pit straight.
if they can really just suss it out and really get these upgrades to properly work, then this could be hopefully
I think
start. I mean,
for me and you, Tom, as a neutral, it's really good to see that an old top team is coming back up. Obviously, Arrow's going to be hyped anyway.
Yeah.
For any bit of points that they pick up, or even just finishing the race last season.
Oh yeah.
But slow improvements, and now to see them come up through the midfield, and then like I say with the press conference.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Track,
yeah, that's a good point.
We're going to go to Monaco. God, that might be top 5.
Arrow's under pressure from McLaren to deliver. Otherwise, you'll be a Haas fan very soon.
Correction. All right, I will be supporting Haas. I will still. I think a few people got me mixed up when I tweeted about this. I support a driver. I don't support a team in F1. I don't really believe in supporting a team in F1.
I don't support.
I just support my driver, which is Button.
Tom's maybe a Ferrari
I'll
fan,
support any team Button goes to.
Yeah.
I used to support driver, but now I've got no driver. I sort of just support the team.
Yeah, true. You sort of got kind of. Yeah.
I will say for McLaren though, it's looking very good. Let's not forget, if you remember Monaco last year with the car they had then, and they got points. Monaco's around the corner.
Yeah. And Azerbaijan as well.
Eye out.
That's not far off as well.
But but it's not really as good as Monaco. There's still a massive pit straight where they
but power. It's still a street circuit. There's still chance for a car to crash.
So obviously at Spain, it's quite a mechanical track. Obviously a lot of mechanical grip is needed. So you see a lot of the time through the years that when people qualify, it's pretty much 2x2 a lot of the times. You'll have 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls. So in terms of that, it'll be very interesting to see. Like Spain will be probably one of the best places to really see definitively where the team is in that pecking order. So
it's a track that always pushes the car to the limit, which is always why it's a really good testing circuit. Because it always separates like how good your car is aerodynamically in a straight. Obviously, it's got a huge start-finish straight, and it's also very hard on mechanical grip in the final sector, which obviously we saw in the past couple of years. Like we saw, I think it was like 2013 when we saw that the Mercedes was starting to get better because it was monster in that final sector, and there was like, oh yeah, they might do well at like Monaco. So it's a track that's very well rounded, and it'll push the car all round. So I think that's also why so many teams bring so many parts. Obviously, it's the first European season, but first in the European season, but it's very good to test out how well your parts perform.
Obviously, in terms of other teams, we don't really need to talk about Red Bull and Toro Rosso. We've already said there's not whatever they bring, but the main topic is going to be the drivers. Obviously,
they brought a new driver.
But,
the drivers
we've got a new upgrade. We've got a new
it's
driver.
Like the Stig it's like the Stig in a box. So take out a new car, take out a new driver.
Obviously, there's not really anything major. I think Force India have got quite a major car revamp, like almost like a bespoke car plan for this next race. But other than that, there's not really much more.
It's very early in the week, so they might start to say about upgrades in the next coming week before the Grand Prix. So follow us on Twitter and we'll retweet.
In terms of like in terms of the top 2 teams, Mercedes and Ferrari. Ferrari brought some interesting little updates to the front wing in Russia, and they'll continue to try and do that. Mercedes also brought an update to their front wing, so it's nice to see that they're still finding places to improve in terms of, because we're getting a little bit, at least I was getting a little bit frightened, that we're getting to sort of a kind of end point where teams are really grinding out performance. So, I mean, I'm hoping that we can see some new stuff for Mercedes and Ferrari.
Well,
just to talk about in terms of interesting stuff.
In terms of the spectacle, we want Ferrari to catch up a bit. I might be biased here, but I do think everyone wants to catch up.
I think no one can deny that in terms of spectacle.
Even Rosberg said in Sochi after the race, he was actually surprised how much better Mercedes were than Ferrari. They expected more from Ferrari, but Ferrari just didn't turn up. I think it was very much a case of the track. It just didn't suit the car, and they just seemed to struggle a bit. Obviously, we who knows how Vettel would have gotten in that race had he not crashed out, but I think Ferrari really do need a performance, because let's not forget, at this point last season, they already had a race win, believe it or not. So there's pressure on Ferrari to deliver.
I mean, honestly, this track, being obviously the track it is, I think this is sort of like, okay, it has to happen now. Because there's only so many races you can go, it's just not a good Ferrari track. Because that pretty much then turns into, this season was not a Ferrari season.
Exactly.
So
it's really ridiculous. But it's quite ironic, actually, talking about Rosberg, because he's been saying, obviously, kind of going back to these conspiracy things, like Rosberg's just been sitting there going, it's almost getting, like, obviously you can't get bored of winning, but he's like, I at least want a challenge. Like, I don't want my main competitor to be taken out, which is obviously linking into like the predictions. Obviously, I think we all want Hamilton to actually have a good race, just because we want Rosberg to have some sort of challenge. We don't want to see him walk the entire season, because then that also kind of puts the spectacle of his world championship at the end, saying, he might. It's very unlucky.
I don't really agree with his statement about that wanting competition. I think he
obviously puts that on for the press conference.
I think it's just good PR. Honestly, like, a win's a win, and you should be like reveling in it.
No, but even when he wins, you hear on the team radio, he's not. Listen, at the end of the day, I think Nico Rosberg, I don't really like his attitude in a way, because I remember last season when he was always finishing second to Hamilton. He was always sort of happy to be there. He was more like talking about, well, let's see if these red guys can catch us. It's like, no, he should be more driven.
Whereas Hamilton last season was very, he's another win.
Yeah, he's not really focused with the goal. He's like, I feel like he sort of goes with it. He hasn't got that driven World Championship mentality to, like,
which is why
when he does win, he isn't a drink it in.
That's
exactly.
He should be wanting a fifth win.
World champions are selfish.
Yeah, he should be wanting a fifth win, and then a sixth win, and then a seventh one.
He doesn't have to be an idiot about it, but he can, instead of saying, I wish I had more competition from my teammate, he could say, like, hopefully we can continue this good form in my side of the garage and try and get another race.
That's
win.
exactly what Hamilton said all last season.
It's like you've got to change the script a bit. He hasn't got that spark to, like, do just the cutting edge.
There's that, and also I just think it's sort of from a almost think like out of the two, obviously, I think he's more into the whole PR stuff in terms of like
nice
he goes
guy
to
in the press
he goes to the events, he does press conferences, he does these charity things. So I just think that's also his mind, as he said, is different a little bit from other world champions. Like he's little bit too switched on in terms of the PR stuff. Like, oh, this would be really good PR if I talk about, yeah, it would be great if we were fighting, that would be really good. But it's like, do you honestly believe that, mate? Like, can we just have like some actual, like, honest truth? Would he really wouldn't be like, he'd be like sitting there like, got 4 wins, lads. This is
in terms storming. Of making the championship exciting. If he really wants that and he wants a good season, what he should do is go out on a limb and say, hopefully I can keep this form up and Lewis has these problems. Say something controversial. That will get the people watching. And not being a nice guy. If you want entertainment, you piss people off. That's
create some fake Sky F1 hype. Titanic battle.
Hamilton does it when he's winning and he has a bad race. Last season, whenever Rosberg had half a chance, and Hamilton sort of put it all on ice. It's like the whole Spa 2014, I think it was, incident, I feel like Hamilton did more than what Rosberg did in that incident, and it sort of sparked a bit of a fire. There needs to be more of that, not just, oh, well, if he catches me next race, then... it's just... That's making the fan say, okay, let's hope Ferrari can catch up, or Red Bull.
Yeah.
You need a bit more spark.
But,
it's a weird one.
Everything for
it's
the
a weird
news
one.
and everything.
But yeah,
I
think
that's...
a
little prediction?
Predictions. Yeah, we'll wrap that up. So we'll wrap it up in the podcast. So predictions for the Grand Prix. Go to one of you two first.
Race winner. What are we doing?
Yeah, let's go podium.
I am going to say Hamilton, Vettel, Raikkonen, and Rosberg DNFs. I think this could be it. It's got to happen. It's got to happen.
I know. I'm going to say Hamilton, Vettel, Rosberg, and Rosberg and Raikkonen have some sort of, like, Rosberg kind of gets screwed over by Raikkonen a little bit with strategy, getting stuck behind him. I'm kind of thinking that something's got to go wrong with Rosberg sometime soon, I think.
I'm going to say Rosberg, Hamilton, Vettel. Hamilton, Rosberg fight it out, but Rosberg just gets the edge somehow.
So you think Rosberg's going to...
I think, honestly...
Outrace
8 or 7, and then...
honestly, I think it could continue on for 1 or 2 more races, and then it sort of ends basically around Monaco or Azerbaijan. Honestly, I think so, but we'll see. Whatever happens, I think this will be a very interesting Grand Prix. This will be...
If I'm... to be honest, in terms of predictions, if I'm being open, and I don't like the guy, but I just want Lewis Hamilton to win now a few races, and I don't care where Rosberg finishes. You need the balance to come back. It's got to the point where Rosberg's too far ahead. You need him to drop points, and the only thing that happen is if Lewis beats him.
Yeah, in terms of the sport, I would love if Hamilton or Vettel could win the Spanish Grand Prix, just to mix it up. Obviously, the last 4 races of, well, not Russia maybe, but the first 3 really awesome races, but all of them were races for second basically. But it was still fantastic. It doesn't take anything away for them. They were fantastic races.
I don't think Russia was that great myself. I thought Russia was a bit...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The first 3 races were good. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm thinking Russia's the 3rd race. Sorry.
Yeah. So in terms of that, but obviously it would be even better if it was a race for first. So it'd be great to see Vettel and Hamilton right up there, and I hope that does happen. But I just think there's probably 1 more race in it for Rosberg to keep that momentum, and then probably ends around Monaco. But anyway, so that's been the predictions, guys. If you have enjoyed the podcast, smash that like button. Let us know what you thought in the comments below about the whole Vettel and Kvyat incident and anything else we talked about in terms of the Spanish Grand Prix. If you're new around here, then do subscribe to this channel for the podcast. So these 2, if you have enjoyed them talking about F1, follow all 3 of us on Twitter at Above Us. If you want to know, we tweet obviously quite a lot during the race weekend. So if you want to talk over there, that's pretty much where most, if not all, of the F1 community sort of talks is on Twitter. We don't really do much talking anywhere else.
Twitter.
Like, YouTube doesn't really count in terms of like a forum to actually talk. Twitter is the place to be at. So if you're not on Twitter yet, make a Twitter and follow all 3 of us. There's Tom's little promotion there, Twitter logo. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. We'll see you guys next time for the next podcast, which will be obviously for the Spanish Grand Prix. So we'll see you guys then. And yeah, goodbye. It's episode number 11, right? Yeah, 11.
Yep.
Wow, I missed the last one, didn't I? Yeah.
Yes, you did. Starting in 11. Well, starting in 11. Starting in 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. You can't be laughing when we fucking start the podcast.
That fun sucking. Oh, I'm just trying to...
This is definitely going in the outtakes at the very end of the podcast.
Oh god, this is what you get if you watch to the very end. Oh my god, I don't know.
Oh wow.
I can't be laughing. The amount of times I'm like pulling a face when you start the podcast, right?